Thank you very much. And if I could just get your attention for a few minutes here, we're going to tell you a little bit more about ICM. This is a great evening. It is the evening that I look forward to the most of the year. I get probably many of my best friends in the world all together in one room in the night, so just can't get any better than that. And I hope you've enjoyed the production that we've had tonight. Everything has been done in-house, so there's no professional production, so it's all pretty impressive people. Tonight, I just want to share with you a couple of stories of what's happened because of your generosity over the last few years, and we want to express our gratitude. What I've learned is, since I left Morgan Stanley, that in many ways running a charity is not that much different than running a business. There are some good years, and there are some challenging years. And this year, for ICM, it's been both. This year, we've had some big successes. We celebrated our graduation of our 750,000th family member from ICM's 4-month Transform program. We also, this year, received some grants from both USAID and also from UK Aid. They weren't huge grants, but we were executing on them very well, and eventually we're going to be getting some larger grants from those guys, but it takes a while to get up to speed. But that has been a great accomplishment for us this year as well. We are also seeing that there's some senior government officials in the Philippines that are reaching out to ICM as well. We've had productive meetings with the new Secretary of the Department of Social Welfare, with the new Secretary of Health, and also with the Vice President of the country. And it's going to be interesting to see how all that unfolds. And this year, we have been cementing ICM's reputation as being one of the thought leaders in the world on the conversation about how to fight ultra-poverty. So just a couple of weeks ago, we held a conference that was co-hosted by Yale University and ICM in New Haven. And I'll tell you more, and we wanted to release the results of our randomized control trials. Now, I'm going to tell you more about the results later, but just the conference itself was a phenomenal experience for us. At that conference, to hear about ICM's results, we had representatives from USAID, from the World Bank, from the United Nations, from the German government, from foundations, and from people from about 24 different large charities. And it's really been quite extraordinary to see a small faith-based charity that was leading the conversation about how to best affect and manage and measure changes in poverty reduction. In fact, one of the senior guys that attended our event said that event at Yale was one of the most significant events to happen in the entire field of development economics in my lifetime. Whoa. So, why would he say something like that? It's because he believes that ICM is on the cusp of figuring out ways to fight poverty in a way that the development world has never done before. And it could change the way that development is done in the world. And the development world is beginning to listen to ICM strategies. This year has also been a great challenge for ICM, not just good, but also difficult times. And you may be used to hearing that ICM is growing larger and larger and larger. And even though with the number of poor communities that ICM has been working with through the years the demand is very high. We are now reaching our 3rd year in a row where we've got a virtually flat budget. Now, we hope that ICM is finally turning the corner on the finances, but this year it's been pretty hard to say no to a lot of poor people. Now, I hope that a lot of you are gratified by hearing those sorts of updates, because our ability to help so many poor people is directly related to the people in this room. Seriously, our future here is interlinked with the future of all of you as well, because you guys in this room have been the engine that has developed and driven ICM to where we are. So we don't just think of this event tonight as a normal charity event. We actually think that this is an event that it is not often that you get to sit in a room of this size and affect this many human beings in one night. It is quite extraordinary, and we are extraordinarily grateful for all of you for how generous you've been in the past. Now, the best way for us to express our generosity is to just be accountable and to tell you how your money has been spent. And so what we want to do is, what we worry is that many people come to an event like this and they figure that they make a donation and it just goes into this big pot of money and it doesn't really make any difference. That is not true. Tonight I want to tell you a 2-year journey of what happens when you give, tangibly. Now, if you could, think back what happened 2 years ago. Those were the days before Brexit. before Hillary and Trump, before Pokemon Go. 2 years ago, our banquet, we called it 10-10-10 because it was our 10th banquet, and it happened on the 10th day of the 10th month. Hong Kong at the time was in the grip of the umbrella revolution, and I don't know if you remember, but traffic was insane. It was crazy, and yet people still come. A lot of you still made it here, and we raised a lot of money that night, and we raised enough money for 227 different communities to be rescued from poverty. And tonight I want to tell you the story of just one of those gifts. And let's call that particular donation, we'll call it the gift. We'll give it a name, call it the gift. Now, at the same time that we were in this room here 2 years ago, there was a guy in a small village in the Philippines called Bato, and his name was Pastor RG. And he was totally unaware of what we were doing here in Hong Kong. But he had served the poor people in his community for about 6 years, and he heard from other pastors about ICM's program. So in October, he applied to be approved for us, and the gift that we got from this banquet 2 years ago allowed ICM to approve Pastor RG's application. So he started the Transform program just a few months later in February of 2015, and this is the photo that we gave to the giver of the gift. When it started, and that photo has a banner with the giver's name on it, and we whited it out there, and a picture, and the picture includes every family that particular giver was donating to help. And whenever a donor gives a gift to ICM to support a community, we send you a picture just like this of the particular people that you are helping. So at ICM, we have a voracious appetite for data. We try to measure everything. Every year, we'll take about 200,000 family members through our program, and we track the size of every home. We track whether every child is sick, whether they're attending school, and 24 other factors to determine if they're poor enough to go into a Transform program. And then once the Transform program starts, we track attendance, we track pregnancies, we track loans, savings, dozens of other indicators for every individual in the program on a real-time basis. That allows us to see our victories and our struggles, and it allows us to respond. But that's only part of our data. So far, we've collected about 50 million data points on our participants. That data, big data, can be very, very powerful. For example, the poorest family in Pastor RG's community, they told us that, and we validated, that they only earn 500 pesos. That is about $10 US for the entire family in the average month. That comes out to about 6 US cents per person per day. It is just hard to believe that anyone at any level could possibly survive on that kind of money. If you look at across his whole family, there are a few other members of the family that received slightly larger income, but the vast majority of his community lived on less than 50 US cents per person per day. That's called ultra poverty. You can't get much poorer than this and still survive. Now, what does it mean to live in circumstances like this? Of those 15 families that we surveyed in his community, none of the 15 families had a toilet inside their home. 8 of them had no interior water source. 12 of them had absolutely no furniture. Only 1 had access to any sort of transportation. 4 of those families were suffering from serious health issues like goiters or tuberculosis or untreated diabetes. Not 1 member of the community had any savings. 7 families had debts. Now that sounds pretty terrible, doesn't it? But unfortunately, this community is not especially poor by ICM standard. In fact, Pastor RG's community is about average for us. And if that is average, that's pretty haunting, isn't it? So, across all of our areas, 32% of all the mothers that go into ICM's programs have had one of their own children die. That means 1/3 of our families have suffered the tragedy of burying one of their own children. Now, to help people in circumstances like that, that is ICM's passion. Across our entire organization, we focus exclusively on those who suffer from ultra poverty, or those who earn less than 50 cents a day. Now, let's take a little bit closer look. One of these families, this is Annalen's family. And 3 years ago, they lived in her husband's village, but the relations with his family weren't so good, so they moved back to her parents' community, even though her parents didn't have any room at all. And when our banquet happened, when we were sitting in this room 2 years ago, Annalen had just given birth to her second child named Jay. And in that building, there were 9 people living in it. And the whole family worked very hard to survive. And as a group, they managed to earn about $100 per month for the whole group. And if you divide that across the population, that family was earning about 38 cents per person per day. So they were desperate, and so Annalen, even while she was heavily pregnant, she would go out to the ocean, and she would dive deep into the sea, and she would collect seashells, and she would then sell those shells. That, to me, is heroism. That is someone who's committed to taking care of their kids, no matter what the cost. Now, I personally just became a grandfather, and this is my granddaughter. Her name is Evie. And I'm pretty proud of her, so I wanted to show you a picture. And I have to say that I am grateful that my granddaughter doesn't have to endure these traumas of ultra poverty. Because the ultra poor face much deeper problems than just their financial issues. Our research and our experience shows that the root causes of ultra poverty are around fatalism. That is the belief that nothing you can ever do will ever change your life. The poor, they endure wave after wave of harrowing experiences, abuse, the death of loved ones, the shame of failure, the shackles of hopelessness can be harder to break than the physical constraints. So we asked the families in Pastor RG's community whether anyone who would be willing to lend you $1 if your family was in a serious crisis. And 13 of those families said no. These people, they are marginalized, they're alone. At ICM, we are not trying to just change a few communities or even a village. We are trying to change the face of poverty in the southern two-thirds of the Philippines. It is an audacious goal. Now, how do you possibly bring hope to a spectrum of society, What we have discovered is that there is a church on almost every street corner in the communities we work with. And these local pastors are heroically dedicated to helping their ultra-poor neighbors. Over the last few years, we have developed a network of about 5,000 pastors who are actively engaged with ICM and spend one full day with us every month. This is ICM's secret weapons, this army of thousands of people who will volunteer their time. They will provide meeting places. They will give extensive follow-ups to all the people we work with, and they do it all for free. It is an astonishing resource that keeps our costs down, and it keeps our effectiveness up. And the pastors, they are thrilled to see their passions come to life. Their dream has been to tangibly help the poorest people in their communities. So after 2 years of trial and error, we have developed a 4-month training program that we call it Transform. And in that, we gather the 30 poorest families in every community once a week, and they get lessons in 3 topics, in values, health, and livelihood. We ask the local pastor to teach the values segment, and the pastor teaches about love, forgiveness, self-esteem. And then they visit each family at their home, and they listen to their problems. Pastors, they specialize in hope. And that approach to values is working. Transform is an incredible incubator of hope. For example, here's some research that we've done recently with the University of Toronto and the University of Sydney. We asked participants in our communities if they knew the others in their community well enough to discuss personal issues with them, like a health crisis. And here's the map of their relationships before they engaged with ICM. And some of these people, as you can see, have very few friends. But at the end of ICM's 4-month Transform program, this is the relationship map that we see. People, when they care for each other, then lives can be saved. Into this supportive community, then ICM sends our own trainers, and our own trainers focus on health and focus on livelihood. So in February of 2015, just after the banquet here, that gift allowed Giselle, ICM's health trainer in that community, and Miriam, our livelihood trainer, to launch the 16-week Transform program with 30 participants in Pastor RG's community. Now, to get from our main base to Pastor RJ's community, Giselle and Miriam drove in a van without air conditioning on windy roads for 3 hours to get there and 3 hours to get back. And they did that same sort of thing day after day, week after week. That is extraordinary commitment. ICM has 500 Filipino staff members who display this same level of sacrificial commitment, and every day they fan out all across the country. Giselle, the health trainer, her lessons address common illnesses and sanitation issues. Last year, ICM rescued 700 children from clinical malnutrition. We referred 3,000 people who were at risk for tuberculosis. We supported 2,000 high-risk pregnancies. We dewormed 55,000 children and many other things. And everything we did one at a time for every child. And across our communities, we saw a 74% increase in hygienic practices and a 28% reduction in chronic illnesses. That's health. On the livelihoods lessons, Miriam started by teaching money management, and then she introduced small businesses. After just 16 weeks, our average ultra-poor participant experiences a 106% increase in their income. And that is where the gift becomes the investment, because it is an investment that transforms the lives of the ultra-poor and creates real, concrete economic progress. Halfway through March of 2015, the families in Annalen's community formed a savings group. And all these ultra-poor people, they agreed between themselves to save 10 pesos, that is about 20 US cents per week. And then they elected their own officials. This is Annalen's saving group president. His name is Danny, and he was chosen by the group to help them to figure out the best way to use their savings. And by the end of the program in June 2015, Annalen's community had saved between themselves about 80 US dollars. Now that might sound like a modest amount, but for families living on less than 50 cents, it is a very substantial amount. Now, I had the honor to visit Annalen in her faraway community a few months ago. I got to tell you, that day was blazing hot. And she showed me around, and she showed me how ICM had helped her family. During Transform, Annalen's parents were able to put a new roof on that little tiny house. And plus, Annalen was able to move her family into a different house, and this is their new house for their family. And even though it's a modest house, it's hers, and she has an amazing view. When she joined, Annalen didn't know anyone else from the Transform program, but she quickly made friends. And Annalen, in 16 weeks in a row, did not miss one single Transform lesson. And she was elected to be the secretary of the savings group. So she was pretty surprised about that. She started growing vegetables and medicinal herbs in a tiny plot outside her mother's home. And she started a snack business. She was selling banana cakes and spring rolls. This business increased her family's income by 80%. And at the end of the 4-month Transform program, the families in Annalen's community, they wrote a thank you card to the giver of the gift. And it was personally signed by every participant in the community. And every donor of a Transform community gets this also, a handwritten card from every person that you support. So by June of 2015, 8 months after our banquet, the gift had already transformed lives. But that was not the end. After Transform concluded, the savings group continued to flourish, and they joined ICM's wider network of savings groups. We call it Prevail, and these savings group leaders, they meet once a month for continued training. And get this, across the country, across the Philippines, ICM participants have now accumulated almost 400,000 US dollars of their own money that they can then relend and use for other businesses. All of that from people that earn less than 50 US cents a day. That is astonishing. In Annalen's community, her group's savings continued to grow because they put money in, but then they started reinvesting it in their fish selling business. And by December 2015, this group had enough money to be able, their savings to be able to pay for a Christmas celebration. And that was something that many of those people in that community had never had enough money to do before, celebrate Christmas. And when a severe drought hit the Philippines in early 2016, they were able to rely on their savings as food prices increased. And in May, many of the members were able to buy their children new school uniforms and books and pay the school fees. And in follow-up surveys with Annalen's community, we learned that in her community, family incomes increased by 101%. Every single family had savings, averaging $7 per family. There were 50 microloan businesses were started with high repayment rates. 20 families started organic gardens. Also, Annalen's community was part of this big randomized control trial that ICM conducted with Yale University. We launched this huge effort. It involved 8,000 different ICM families, just like Annalen. And Yale spent between 3 and 5 hours with every single family that they were spending. So you can appreciate when they got us the results, we were pretty nervous, anxious about what the results would be. But I am now very pleased and relieved to confirm that Yale's research did provide concrete independent evidence that ICM's Transform program does in fact improve household income. And Yale says that their level of confidence is very high at 95%. And with the confidence level of 99%, they say that the Transform causes big improvements in financial inclusion and also enhanced hygiene. And finally, Yale documented that there was an improvement in grit. That is a concept that was made popular by Dr. Angela Ducksworth from Pennsylvania. And maybe some of you may have seen her TED Talk, as it's been seen by 20 million people. Grit is the ability to persevere through adversity, and it is proven to be one of the most reliable indicators of future success. Not EQ or IQ, but grit. And so ICM was able to improve that. Now, to be fair, not every factor that measured by Yale was improved, and also these results that I just mentioned are only midline results taking 6 months after the program. The academics say that the real results happen 2 years after the program, which will be next summer, but we are pleased with what we've learned so far. And we chose to tell you tonight Annalen's story because she is one of those very families that was studied in the randomized control trial. And her results are very close to the average impact that ICM has on an ultra-poor family. Now, aside from those specific results, this has also been a learning experience for ICM. It's just the start of our ongoing cutting-edge research. Yale decided to embed one of their researchers inside ICM for the next 2 years to conduct a whole series of studies. And together with Yale, we have already now planned a whole series of additional randomized trials. Now, why do we go to all the effort to do all this kind of research? Because one of our core values is that we can always do better tomorrow than we did yesterday. And we are hoping to accumulate a body of knowledge to light the way for new strategies to fight ultra-poverty around the world. So, now we arrive at today, 2 years later. Annalen and her community have been empowered to build a better future. Their businesses continue to thrive. And I spent quite a lot of time with Annalen's savings group looking over their records. Look at these records. I was pretty impressed. This is a pretty motivated group of people, and they're excited about their future. And Annalen herself has been through so much. In her, I see dignity when she faces struggles. I see strength when many would only see adversity. And to all of you in this room, you giver of gifts, you may not know the full impact of your particular donation, but I can tell you with all certainty that because of what many of you did here in this room 2 years ago, that homes have been rebuilt, children have graduated from school, kids have been rescued from malnutrition, women have been cured of their illnesses, and most importantly, hope has been rekindled. And to fund all of that change in a community like Annalen's costs about 20,000 Hong Kong dollars. That is for an entire community. That works out to about 100 Hong Kong dollars per person. That's pretty impressive, right? Not $100 per month or $100 per year. It's just $100, period. It's just a little over 10 US dollars. It means that you can permanently change someone's life for the cost of 2 lattes at Starbucks. Now, at ICM, we do everything we can to stretch every dollar. We're transparent about our finances. If you have any questions, just ask. Every dollar that's donated tonight to Transform will go directly to those in need. But we don't run a comfortable cash buffer. We directly scale the number of programs that we run based on the amount of donations that we receive. And every gift made to a Transform community tonight will be tracked, measured, and reported directly to you. Now, we've been doing this for 6-7 years, and since we started running our first Transform program in 2009. What's happened during that time? It's not easy to track our progress over an extended period of time, but using conservative estimates, our research would say that because of ICM, 29,000 people now have toilets. 95,000 more people enjoy purified drinking water. 48,000 fewer suffer from recurring hunger. 95,000 have their own savings. 28,000 fewer live in scrapped roofs, 42,000 no longer have dirt floors, and more than 100,000 people who used to earn less than 50 cents a day now earn more than 50 cents a day. So you could say that 100,000 people have been delivered from ultra-poverty. And if that number is not enough, try this one, a truly astonishing number. Since 2009, our participants have generated 64 million US dollars of additional income for their families. That's about 10 times more than ICM's budget to run these programs. Now, those are big numbers, but they only happen because of individual donors. It begins with a gift that each of us gives, and we are very grateful for all of you who have partnered with us along for the route. So tonight, we've been telling you the story of one very special gift. Annalen's community was sponsored 2 years ago in this room, and those donors are here tonight. And they didn't really know we were going to use their donation as an example, but it's not an especially unusual case. We could have picked many different donations and shown you a similar kind of impact. Each gift has its own impact. But as we spent time with Annalen talking to her about this program, she listened to us talking about our gratitude for our donors, and she too wanted to thank the people that changed her life. But Transform involves so many different layers, different leaders, resources, so it's kind of hard to figure out how to do that. So Annalen decided to track down the people that changed her life. Now remember, Annalen's Transform program happened about 1.5 years ago, but the events you're about to see happened very, very recently, just about a week or two ago. So let's watch how she did.
Years, my life has been a constant struggle, but after ICM program, I realized that the future can be brighter. Recently, I thought about how big the impact was that ICM had on my life, and I wanted to thank the people that made a difference in me and my family's life.
Naaday ko diri para pasalamatan si Pastor sa among ICM tungod siya ang nagpadumala sa money nga makaapil ko ani. Daghan kay kasalamat, Pastor. Tinuod lang dako kay kog salamat pa. Nakita na ako nga dako kay kaghawo para lang maapil ni ana. Salamat gid kaayo kay nimo sa pag-alawit sa Ginoo nagatuloy balaan. Ninaon nga daghan pa kag matabangan sama na. Isa pa po tao na akong pasalamatan, si Sir Danilo Manaso. Sir, salamat kayo. Kaya tungkol mo na yung ligon ng akong savings group, hinaon, nga magpadayon. Daghan pa tayo may bawaan para sa negosyo, tungkol mo yun anak, sir. Nta, nga magpadayon akong savings, sir. Nta, nga dili ka para sa mga kuhan pa nga, mawala nga. Ulan.
I heard before about Mom Marites, who's in charge of the whole province, but I never had the chance to meet her. And I heard that it's her birthday, so I could surprise her.
Oh my goodness! Wow, salamat! Salamat kayo. Very thankful galing kayo kung sabi ko tapos na ko nibal ang so somehow at least sa among sacrifices sa pinakatuig na mo pagsabuso sa ICM, nakita ka na mo nga nagpasalamat with all this sa imong ginhimo. Salamat kayo ha. Dako kayo na siya ng surprise.
Thank you kayo, Mom. Gift na ako, Mama.
Salamat.
Magpasalamat gani kung manaabot ko dito. Salamat na po sa inyong pagtulong.
Wow! Kumusta na ka?
Okay kayo.
Ay, padayon kaya mo.
Yes, Ma'am. Salamat gani kung naabot mo dito sa mga mamis kang sa kalayo sa akin.
Nalaoy. Kumusta na kami palab-labing?
Hello, Hong Kong. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, what a beautiful ballroom. I really wanted to be here with you all in person tonight. So, here I am.
Guanji.
That's Guanji
I
over
wear
there.
Mom
This is
Guanji.
and this is Dennis.
Thank you for your generosity that brought ICM to our community. Thank you for believing in my family, even though you had never met me or even though know my name. Thank you for allowing me to provide a better future for my children. Thank you so much, sir.
God bless you.
Listen, on 48 hours ago on Saturday morning, Annalen was in her home village, and she left her home at 4 a.m. on a bus, and she took a 2-hour bus ride to General Santos City, and then she boarded her first plane ever to fly to Manila, and she enjoyed the ride in the plane, no motion sickness, and then she came on to Hong Kong, and Sunday was a really big day for her. She enjoyed our food, and then the skyscrapers, and the MTR, and the bus. Big day at Ocean Park. The aquarium was great. A little bit of shopping, but the shopping was a little bit expensive. And lunch was a little bit bigger than the meals at home. And she mustered up the courage for one scary ride, but not enough courage for the other scary ride. And she had a great day. She enjoyed a cable car ride, and she made a few new friends. And then she came to the ICM office last night to talk to us to prepare for today. And we are live streaming this event around the world. Many of you may know that. And in General Santos City, her family, her husband, and her children are all watching her live here. So I just thought you'd want to say hello to her kids. Sort of wave a little bit. There you go. So, Annalen, big couple of days for you. So, how do you feel about that Chinese food?
I like goose, but I don't know how to use the chopstick.
Chopsticks were a problem, and the restaurant, no fork. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a problem. At any rate, and how are you enjoying your time in Hong Kong?
I have really enjoyed my trip here. People are so nice. And to all of you here tonight, thank you for your support, your love, and your care. We are so very grateful. I hope that you will all continue to support ICM Works because I know what it means to find hope again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.